By now, I'm pretty sure you guys understand we're talking about Thor.
Wait, Thor Part 1 or Part 2?
Dude, Part 1 came years ago. Do you think anybody would remember that by now? I'm talking about Part 2.
Who are you to give a review of Thor Part 2?
I'm just basically crazy about movies, and we have a team called Cinema Picture, which just means Movie Madness. And we're releasing a new segment called Chris Hemsworth is back in Thor 2 with a new look. If you want to talk about his role in this movie, I say a bit less action and a bit more emotion, whether it's with his dad, mom, Natalie Portman, even Loki. Now in Thor 1 he gets beat up maybe once, twice, but Thor 2? Let's see here. Once, twice, 6, 8? He gets beat up quite a good bit in this movie. But since he's a superhero, ultimately he wins over the enemy. That actually got me thinking, how would it be like if I was Thor with a hammer? Okay, maybe I shouldn't be Thor, but you guys know what? In Marvel, whether it's Iron Man, Captain America, Hulk, Thor, everybody has a scene where, they have their shirt off. But why doesn't the new Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield, have a scene like that?
Dude, seriously? Can we get back to Thor?
Alright, fine. Okay, so let's talk about Natalie Portman's character. Did you guys know that she has superpowers in this movie?
Wait, what?
Yeah, let me explain. Because wherever she goes in this movie, whether it's Asgard or the Dark World that Loki takes her to, nothing ever happens to her.
After all this time, now you come to visit me, brother. Why? To mock?
I need your help. But I wish I could trust you.
If you did, you'd be the fool I always took you for.
They're wrong. There was darkness, and it has survived.
What's gonna happen?
I gave you my word. I would return for you.
And did you guys know, another weird little thing in this movie is if normal people touch Natalie Portman, there's normally like a big explosion, but if any of the main characters like Thor, Loki, Odin, and the Queen of Asgard touch Natalie Portman, nothing happens. And in the whole world, she was the only one to find ether. Did you guys ever think of that? Well, actually don't think too hard because she's supposed to be this world-renowned scientist and Thor's girlfriend. So the story kind of has to move on. I've actually conducted a little science experiment myself.
Brother, I need your help.
You must be truly desperate if you need my help, brother.
Yes, brother. One of the spherical orbs of light is not lighting. Thank you, brother.
Asgard! Let's talk about Loki. Loki actually has a bigger role in this movie, and like we're already used to, he ends up betraying Thor again. Like that's new. But the director has used him to bring out some comedy in this movie. I don't know why a character like Loki just randomly becomes a comedian.
May I see your hammer, brother?
You can, brother, but I must warn you, I don't think you'll be able to lift it.
I think the director got inspired by seeing Star Wars and Iron Man because all the weaponry used by the bad guys in this movie is like lasers and heat-seeking missiles and invisible shields and spaceships and touch interfaces. And even Asgard uses the same thing to defend their homeland. And if you guys remember in the first Thor, there's a gigantic metal looking thing that basically breathes fire. Well, in the second one, there's an ugly looking monster. Basically, in any superhero movie, the bad guys obviously have some sort of a technology which they try to use to take over the world, and superheroes, being superheroes, step in and defeat them and win overall. Same thing in this movie. Bad guys have the ether, Thor's a superhero. But the director has used a bit of sentimental, emotional scenes to liven up the story, but it really didn't work out. Let's talk about the positive points in this movie. Thor and Loki teaming up together to fight was definitely a big plus. They also showed a lot more of Asgard in this movie, which was actually really cool. The mother's funeral scene was shot really well and it was actually really emotional. The so-called Star Wars spaceships were kinda cool. Well, the negative points in this movie is, you guys remember in Avengers when New York gets attacked by the space creatures? The entire shield comes up, even Nick Fury, Samuel Jackson, comes up and, fights with them and everything. So when that happens in London, where's shield?
Maybe they're just shooting for Captain America too.
Right, yeah, that might. And the whole starships and lasers and invisible shields, isn't that a bit too Iron Man? And the scene following after the mother's funeral, Thor and Loki have their little comedy scene, but is that really necessary in that sort of situation? In the climax scene when Thor's fighting the bad guys and they kind of jump from one place to another, it's a bit all over the place. And Loki cutting Thor's hand, which he uses to retrieve the hammer, that's a bit too low. He's a superhero, why would you cut his hand? Do you guys remember in the first Thor, the bridge was broken and we were all wondering, how did Thor make it to New York in Avengers? Well, in this movie, clearly they show you that they have rebuilt that bridge. And...
Dude, can you seriously stop? You're going on forever.
Alright, okay. Let's talk about the rating for this movie.
Hail Asgard!
Now, thinking about the story, the roles, the direction, and everything, we're gonna give it a 6 out of 10. So that's Thor, The Dark World. Even though this movie is not really exciting and action-packed, there is a little surprise for you guys at the end of the critics. So don't leave the theater just quite yet. Now, as the review is over, I think it's time for me to go save the world.
Stop, brother! Put the hammer down.
You want me to put the hammer down?